Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers, and I have an amazing list of guests tonight to speak about the immortal John Carpenter's Halloween. But first, let me get to my guests this evening. We have Jim Adams from Monster Attacks, and we have Sarah Panozzo, who has done a lot of great films and worked on a lot of Hollywood projects. So if each of you could tell us a little bit about yourself, we'll get started. Jim?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm the host of Monster Attack. Podcast has been on the air for almost 8 years now. I'm a local actor in the Atlanta area. I've been acting most of my life. I started when I was in kindergarten. And it was about 2 years after that I got introduced to monster movies by my mom and dad. And I have been in love with all things horror and monsters ever since. It's been a big part of my life for more years than I would care to mention.
How about you, Sarah? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am Sarah Panozzo. I've loved horror almost as long as I've been alive, from reading Goosebumps books in the dark and by flashlight to now when I work on certain horror movies. I actually just finished Exorcist Believer, which was surprisingly the same crew as the new Halloween trilogy, so kind of ties into today.
Nice.
Excellent. Okay, so tonight's movie is going to be John Carpenter's Halloween, which I know is a favorite for a lot of people out there. But first of all, I always like to ask, what was your experience watching this film for the first time, or your best experience watching?
First time was on the re-release in 1979 because it had been released a year earlier and nobody knew about it. I mean, it made some stop. So for many years, I thought 1979 was the actual release year for this movie. I was working in a little town called Carrollton, Georgia. I'm managing a restaurant there, and I happened to go to a lot of movies in my spare time. Saw the poster for this one and thought, oh man, that looks pretty cool. It came out October 26th of 1979, and on the re-release. It was a game changer for me. I had never quite experienced a film like this one. And, of course, as we all know, and we'll talk about it, it sort of started its own genre. I walked out absolutely blown away by the experience. It was just it was such a simple film. And it wasn't bloody, but it was, I won't say not so much terrifying. It was for a lot of people, but it was just like, it really got into my head, which I liked. After being sort of numb to all things monster and horror since I'd been a little kid. I was 24 when I saw this for the first time, and I thought, man, you did it. John Carpenter, you did it. You got me. It takes a lot to get me with a monster movie, but you did it. So I have very fond memories of this film.
Okay, what about you, Panozzo?
I did not have very fond memories the first time I watched it. I was about 8 years old, growing up in Illinois, so I was absolutely terrified that Michael Myers was going to come and get me. I don't remember exactly how we decided to watch it, but I was at my babysitter's house, and they decided to throw it on TV for a bunch of 10-year-olds and under, and I was terrified of it. Like I said, in Illinois, thinking he's real. But then we went and rewatched a bunch of horror movies during quarantine in 2020. And we did a bunch of back-to-backs of the original versus the remakes for like this, Texas Chainsaw. I think we did the Friday the 13th one as well. And just going back and seeing like this is what used to be considered scary versus now what's considered scary. It was very bizarre. But at the same time, I think this is the only one that's really held up against the test of time because it still is functionally scary.
Is there a Haddonfield, Illinois, for real?
There is not. I actually did some research. There is a Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is where Deborah Hill, the co-writer and producer, is from.
That's where they got the name. Okay.
And then almost all of the streets and businesses and stuff like that are named after places in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is
that's John Carpenter's thing. Yeah, he's got a nice little Easter egg in the end credits.
Oh, never knew that. Huh.
Oh, yeah, you didn't know that? If you look at the end credits, watch all of the credits, Kevin, because at the end it will say the music
Yes.
was performed by the Bowling Green Philharmonic Orchestra, which there was a few times that I didn't even notice that, because I usually will sit through all the credits, but for years and then it was like I was with some friends. I said, you got to see this movie, and we watched through the end credits. They go, what is that? And I went, yeah, what is that? Bowling Green Philharmonic? What the hell is that? Of course, that's John Carpenter's little inside joke. He was the artist, and
Yeah.
he is the Bowling Green Philharmonic, since he's a native of Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Interesting. So I have my background with this film is watching it probably around 10 years old and having a triple feature of all the first 3 Halloween films. My mother was a huge fan of slasher movies and horror movies in general. Yeah. And so I ended up watching them with her. So somewhere around there in the early 80s, I ended up watching all 3 of them. Because my mother watched them. And of course, after watching 3 Halloween movies, I'm like, so what's happened next? When's the next Michael Myers movie's coming out? I didn't see that. So for years, I waited for that damn 4th Halloween movie to come out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I waited a long time as a little kid waiting for this damn movie to come out. And when it finally did, I was like, I will say I was a little disappointed that he wasn't in the 3rd one, but it didn't really matter to me as a kid. That's like, oh, I want one of those masks. Those masks are so cool.
Oh, I thought the 3rd one was awesome.
It's so much fun.
I love the 3rd one, yeah.
As a kid,
and it's not a slasher movie, which is even cool,
I mean, at parts it gets really slasher-esque.
Yeah, well, there's a big body count. Yes, yes.
But the thing is, they had robots, and when you're a little kid, you're like, oh yeah, it's cool. So
robots.
That's robots. So and that's why I was a huge fan of Halloween. I probably religiously watched Halloween almost every Halloween for about a decade or so.
Yeah.
Between my teen years and like early college, somewhere around there, because for me, I didn't do the trick-or-treating thing. I didn't do all that type of stuff. I literally sat home, watched every Halloween movie in order, and then I'd finally go this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think I watched every one of them in order until the 6th one. I think whenever that one came out was the last time I watched all of them in one night.
Yeah, I mean after 4, it kept just going. I mean, the only good thing about 4 was Danielle Harris. But the rest of them were just 4. Anything beyond 3 was a waste of time.
Yeah, it really becomes a choose your own adventure where in any of these films you are, because you can watch them in so many different ways.
Oh, yeah. So sad. So sad. So that being said, I'm not going to explain the plot of Halloween because I'm pretty sure everyone out there listening has already seen a version of Halloween.
There may be one person that has not seen it, but I would say that would be about it.
Well, the thing is, you would know his mask anywhere. I got little kids wearing Michael Myers mask.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, we had quite a few this year, and I love seeing the Princess Michael Myers every year too.
Oh yeah, I've seen those too now. I was like, when did this become a thing?
That's sort of bizarre. Yeah,
it is. But I've seen both kids dressed up like Michael Myers and adult women.
And adults. Yep.
I was like, the adult women.
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Well, yeah, because they did some really good job of those female adult ones. I was like, huh.
Oh, I think it's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually saw one at Dragon Con this year. This guy came with a giant rolling bush that played some of the theme music.
Oh, that guy. Didn't he peeks out from behind the bush?
Yes.
I've seen him at other conventions. He's great.
He was so
He's
good.
Hilarious.
And I was there. I was trying to chase him down to get a photo with him or something.
Yeah.
But then from across the floor we were on, there was a Laurie Strode with a pumpkin. And the whole interaction was unbelievable.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, he shows up at Days of the Dead a lot. He's hilarious. He's great.
I missed him. Of course, I haven't been in the last few Days of the Dead, but I missed him. So I'm gonna have to make sure I go see it.
It's great. He walks around with his own bush. Yeah, I mean it's a full length bush.
Yeah, it's a giant hedge.
And and so he sort of sneaks in amongst the crowd, and they don't. A lot of times, the first time I saw him, I never even noticed him, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement, and I see this Michael Myers coming out from behind the bush, sort of peering out. It was great. The guy's really clever.
Okay. Okay. I love the fact that our conversation has gone off to people who dress up like Michael Myers, and of course Bush.
Oh, why not? Yeah.
And Michael Myers. That's good. That's good. So tell me or explain a little of the reactions that you had to the movie. I mean, I'm assuming both of you liked the movie. I don't know why you liked the movie, or do you hate the movie? Tell me a little bit.
I think the one thing I really appreciated about the movie was that it left a lot to your imagination.
Yes,
and I thought that was so gutsy of any horror director, because a lot of times I would watch, and even growing up, a lot of the movies I watched, it was almost like the writers or the directors didn't think you would get it, or they had to show you everything or tell you everything. Mainly as a kid, it was more like tell you everything, because I was, in an age where you couldn't show a whole lot on screen. Psycho was as bad as you could get. But I love that where it's left to your imagination. I think that's why it has stood the test of time over the 40 some odd years that it's been out, because that makes a very frightening horror film in my book.
It really does. It does leave a lot to the imagination. They use just about no blood. I think the only blood they reported using was during the opening scene, where they just kind of toss some blood on the dead sister.
They've got two other sequences. They've got Annie's when Laurie finds Annie, her throat's been cut. There's just some blood on her throat.
Oh, okay.
And there's a little bit of blood on Bill, the guy that's hanging up by the chef's knife.
Yeah, but it's
minimal.
So minimal,
and it's so shadowed that it's not like in your face.
Well, it's probably shadowed in the original version, but the digitally remastered 4K version is probably not in the shadow anymore.
No, it still is. I saw it in 4K. What I saw the other night was in 4K, and it was.
And that's actually one of the things I love about the movie is I'm a huge lighting nerd, and the fact that they had like the lighting dimmer on his face, and their theory on it was they wanted the audience's eyes to adjust to the darkness.
Yeah.
So he could slowly come into view, and he's just so creepy, and he's not there, and then
that's
he's there.
That's the best shot in the whole movie.
And there's the whole misdirection of like somebody in a car getting angry versus him in the back seat hiding, and then all of a sudden he appears. I mean, it's so well done. Like I said, it's really one of the few that has stood the test of time, and it's still terrifying today. Whereas like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think I laughed half of the movie. But
yeah, that one scene with Laurie, when that face just appears, in the doorway, is brilliant. And that got such a reaction in the theater the first time I saw it. I mean, it caught all of us, and that was one of the things where I'm like, "Oh my God, you pulled something on me that nobody's been able to pull on me in years. This is phenomenal." I mean, it was great. I loved getting nailed by a director in a horror film.
Yeah, and like you were kind of mentioning earlier, like the fact with the first one, like there was no rules with this. Like this was one of the first of its kind. You didn't know what was going on. Whereas like the other ones, you get into like the cult of Michael and all the other stuff, but it didn't make sense. At the end, you weren't expecting him to get up, and just everything else. Like he could be stabbed, he could be shot, and he just kept going. And he's just this force of nature the entire time, that you don't know what he can and can't withstand and what he's going to do next, other than kill.
I got to hand it to Tony Moran. I mean, that just the scene of him sitting up and then the head slowly turning while Laurie Strobe's got her back to it. She's sitting down thinking it's all over. Mm-hmm. You got people screaming the first time out. People screaming in the theater going, turn around. I had not seen that kind of a reaction from a horror film in years.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I think it was like the first of its kind that they had audible audience reactions, and people were experiencing a movie instead of just watching it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember reading about that too. In a lot of magazines, they had touched so many different people. And I'll bring it up again because I brought it up in the previous the recording. Fangoria magazine, which liked to tell stories like this of how people's reactions were to these type of movies. And the thing is that there are so many great moments like this in this film. You're right. That's one of the reasons why it stands the test of time, and audiences are still affected by it. Like Sometimes in the darkness you don't see anything, and all of a sudden he just comes out. Or the scene where he like magically sits up straight.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, dude, those things are creepy as hell, and they don't seem to repeat that in any of the other films that John Carpenter doesn't have a hand in. They don't work as well when they do try. I think they tried it in Halloween 4 once. It didn't seem to work as well.
Nothing worked in Halloween 4, so.
And then, of course, everything else that happens in later sequels where it gets chitsy and everything else.
Just gets well when it's when they start getting repetitive, and it's sort of like, okay, we've already been here,
Yeah.
John did something else in this that I loved in it, and it was a trick that had been used in other films, but there's a great scene with Dr. Loomis talking with the sheriff at the break-in of the hardware store where Michael had stolen some of his equipment, so to speak, including the mask. And while they're talking and they're facing the store, a station wagon comes driving down the street, it turns the corner and drives the street, and it's Michael Myers.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that. And that was drawing, the first time out, it was drawing, eliciting a response from the audience saying, he's there, turn around,
As a kid, I always saw that. I never actually had that reaction because I had seen it as a kid, as a triple feature originally. And over and over again. But when I saw that, I didn't care that, it didn't make no sense for Michael Myers to be everywhere, but it was like scary as shit because Michael Myers anywhere. He could be right behind you. Oh my God.
He's right behind the bush. He's in the sheets. He's everywhere at the same time. And like at the end, when they do the montage of all the empty rooms and you just hear his breathing, you're like, he's everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, as a kid, that terrified me, but as an adult, I understood that was all about, the boogeyman could be anywhere, be anyone. You have to watch out around every little nook and cranny or bush.
Even at the school. There was a great scene at the school where the bullies had terrorized little whatchamacallit there.
Tommy.
Tommy, yeah, thank you. And the kids are running off, and one of the little kids is runs right into Michael Myers and looks up, and you're thinking, he's toast, and then just sort of runs off. But it's just like little stuff that he threw in there all over the place to get you going.
And that's something that I noticed today while rewatching. I had to pause it multiple times because I wanted to get the full quote. But did you ever pay attention to what Laurie's learning about in class?
I did.
The poem. Not poem, but the I can't remember now.
Yeah, they're talking about like two different authors and how they consider fate different, and she responds with like fate was somehow related only to religion, where the other ones felt that fate was like a natural element like earth, air, fire, and water, which always goes back to how he is a force of nature. And the teacher's like, yes, Samuel's definitely personified fate. In his writings, fate is immovable like a mountain. It stands where man passes away. Fate never changes. And I was like, I never paid attention to the verbal part of that scene. It's always just out the window. And I was just like, it goes very meta.
Absolutely.
Carpenter does that in a lot of his films sometimes, if you pay attention. It's one of my favorite things that he does in Prince of Darkness. He does that a lot in that.
Oh, yeah. Another
pay attention to the dialogue in that movie. Yeah. Oh my God, it's just magical what he did with that movie. But
and this is based. When he and Deborah Hill sat, it took him 16 days to write the script, and he based it on an actual experience that he had when he was not in as a patient, but he was visiting a psychiatric institute, and there was some little kid there in the lockup part of the ward, he said, that just stared at him the whole time. What he said the kid was just like pure evil looking at him, and he never said a word. And that's what he thought of when he was hired to write the script or to come up with the movie for the producers. He thought that would make a great movie. This character is just like a personification of evil.
Wasn't it originally called The Babysitter Murders?
The Babysitter Murders.
That's what they rumor is what it was, is they wanted it to be a bunch of babysitters murdered around Halloween. Yes. And then they were like, but nobody's going to go see The Babysitter Murders.
That's right. I wouldn't have. It wouldn't
be the movie it is today.
If I had seen that poster, I would have been like, I'll just wait till it comes on TV. I mean, I just or whatever. I wouldn't have been turned on. The Halloween poster itself with sort of a very surrealistic look of a chef's knife and a hand, and I mean, it was like that was everything you needed to get me into the theater. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta check this out.
Jim, you wouldn't have seen the movie The Babysitter Murders, Season of the Witch. Come on, you know you would have seen that.
No, Babysitter's Murders, I would have watched. I would have waited until it came on TV, though. It would have attracted. It wouldn't have, got me excited at the theater. It was like,
Unfortunately, I have not yet been able to. I don't know if they've re-released this one in modern day at all. I know I've seen the fourth and fifth one because they've re-released those multiple different times. So I've seen both of those theatrically. But this is one I would love to see re-released.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's great. It's a great experience in the theater.
Yeah. I think
I think they might have for the 35th anniversary when they re-released all the DVDs and Blu-rays. But it depends on whenever they did it.
I try and get to those. Whenever I can. I haven't seen that one, but I've seen The Exorcist like 3 times now, re-released.
Oh yeah.
I've seen Night of the Living Dead re-released twice. I just haven't seen this one. This one I would go.
I would too.
Yeah.
I'd
like to see Friday the 13th on the theater re-release. That'd be cool too. So, but that's just me.
Yeah. And that one I'm going to be talking with you about down the road here, but. That was one I went to see and went in biased, thinking that it was just a knockoff of Halloween, and walked out saying, "Oh, damn, that's all right."
So
I'll save that for the next show.
Right, yeah. Getting back to Halloween, is there anything between the two of you that you see in this film that you might say is one of the biggest flaws of the film, or something that's a deterrent for people, audience members at all?
I mean, I guess if you don't like teenagers having sex and not watching kids when they're babysitting, then don't watch this movie. Like if you're one of those straight-laced people who cannot stand when people don't listen, then don't watch this movie. But otherwise, I mean, like if you like horror, there is no reason not to watch this movie. I mean, okay. There is one scene, there is especially a website based on this called Does the Dog Die?
Oh, yes.
And that would be the one thing that I would say it's a totally skippable scene. They wanted to show you how evil he was. And you could totally skip that one scene.
Yeah, they could have cut the scene and they don't show much, but they show just enough. I'm the same way. You know, the growing up, the biggest taboo, and I think Kevin, you and I have talked about this, personally, was the biggest taboo you could do in a horror film was to kill a kid, or kill a dog, or an animal of any kind on screen. And if you look at old horror films, you notice they usually keep up with that. It's been very relaxed over the last few years, but just the scene, the dog gets killed, and you just see the carcass falling out of Michael's hands. That's really all they show, but that was enough for me to say, no, not the dog. I don't even want to know off screen that he's dying. Just don't do that. Yeah, I have a real problem when animals get killed in the films.
Yeah, at that point, that kid he bumped into earlier is totally dead in the background somewhere.
Yeah, really.
Never thought about that, but now that you think about it, thanks, Panozzo, for warping.
You're welcome.
I know my wife won't ever see this movie because, again, if she's ever seen it, because she can't stand cruelty to dogs.
No, I can't. No, I mean, dogs, cats, or any animal. I have no problems with them.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that, and I think me and you previously talked about this, Jim. You may have mentioned that website because I do remember someone about that website, or Panozzo, you could have probably told me about this for a different film. But I do remember that being something that I've spoken to someone in regards to Halloween. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Because really growing up, the only movie I ever saw that shook me up as badly, with an animal was in The Thing from Another World, the original one, where they have a scene where the Thing had killed all of the sled dogs, and they find them in the laboratory. They open this thing up, and all the dead dogs fall out. That was like the most horrifying thing growing up I'd ever seen at that point. It was like, I don't think I'd ever seen anything like that since. up until when movies started.
I mean, when The Thing came out, I mean, it's almost the exact same thing. And I was like watching it and I was like, please don't tell me these dogs die.
Oh, it was horrific. No, I mean, it was, I was, like 10 or 11 years old when I saw that movie for the first time, and it traumatized me. It was just awful.
I don't know when I saw The Thing for the very first time, but that was another film that I absolutely loved.
Absolutely.
It was so cool for me.
It's another one that holds well up.
It really
holds
does
up over all the years, all the decades, I should say.
So I'm an 80s kid, so most of these films for me hold up really well.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween's not an 80s movie. I think it's 78.
It's 78.
No, but it set in motion the films we would see in the 80s.
Exactly, and I saw them in the 80s.
Yeah.
So for me, it was the 80s movies because I saw all three of the first three at the same time.
Yeah.
I didn't watch them when they came out. I watched them somewhere in the mid 80s when my mom was on a free for all for renting horror movies at the DVD at the.
They were big at Blockbusters
and
all those.
I was going to come up with the name of what these old places are where you got videos
Video
from.
rentals.
Hollywood Video and National, all of them. Yeah, there was.
Oh, dude, my mother would rent every horror movie there was. We'd go through them all. She'd rent them all. I'd see them, and that
did the same thing.
Traumatized me in a good way because now I'm a horror fan, just like the two of you. Except, me and Jim, we try and talk about monsters sometimes because. Yeah, we talk about monsters a lot. So stuff like this, I was happy for you to have volunteered to be a part of this one because
I'm glad. Yeah,
so much fun.
This is a slasher movie, so this is so different from the other conversations we know.
Well, you see, because in Monster Attack, we don't talk about slasher films. And we explained to folks who said it's not that we don't like them; that's not what this podcast is about. So I was looking around for podcasts where I could talk about them because I watched my share of them all through the 80s and 90s. And, I watch, horror films nowadays, through the different decades, some pretty gruesome stuff. But I've always been a fan of, if it's original and it's not just a repeat or just splattering blood on the film on the screen for the sake of splattering blood on the screen, then I'm pretty into it.
So Panozzo, I know you're not a child of the 80s, so to speak.
No. I grew up in the golden 90s, the best era for horror. We had Scary Movie 1 through 3.
Oh, I love those. Oh my God. Those
like original 3 were probably the best. And then it goes way left sharp when you go into the 2000s. But then, I remember seeing like some of like these golden horror movies that were like fantastic, and how Halloween opened up the world of the new revamp of slashers. Cause there were slashers before, but this really like got the process in motion.
Yeah.
But then like come the 90s, you start getting the weirder stuff. Like you start getting all of the Asian horror movies brought over that are the American remakes, like The Ring and The Grudge. And
good stuff.
Yeah, it's good. It's just completely different.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Because I got into the French horror that got popular there for a while, and others. Yeah. Well, of course, you got Italian horror that was big in the 80s. Which couldn't even be seen on television here for many years. If it wasn't for the video stores, I wouldn't have seen half the ones that I got to see.
Well, most of those are from the 60s and 70s. Which
yeah. A lot of them were from the 70s. In fact, a couple of them were shot here in Atlanta.
I know. Even though we're getting off topic, I'm on my little trip right now down Italian film way.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
On all these 60s and 70s giallo films that I had never bothered to see. I think I watched 25 of them right now.
Oh my gosh. You're gonna need therapy.
I probably I recently had to stop because they all were so repetitive that I needed to make sure I had a clearer head if I watched any more of them. But I think I kind of watched 25 of them. And even though I'm not, endorsing Shudder, I'm endorsing Shudder because Shudder had so many of them available.
Yeah, they really do.
There are a lot on Shudder, yeah.
So I went
just stick with Bava and you'll be pretty sane. I loved his stuff.
I still love his stuff, dude.
Oh, I do, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even his son makes some pretty good stuff now.
To me, he's like the Italian version of John Carpenter.
Yes, very much so.
he took every type of horror genre and kind of mixed it, mashed it, and made his own little thing in the Italian cinema. It was, it's a little sad that the Italian cinema doesn't really exist today. It's more or less died.
It has pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much died. But we had our great John Carpenters of Italian cinemas. We had the Lamberto Bava, Mario Bava, Dario Argento.
Yep, Argento, Fulci, all those guys.
We're gonna get some of those too. We're gonna get to talk about some of those.
Oh yeah, no, it's so
much fun.
I'll sign up for some of those on your list. Absolutely.
But John Carpenter, in my opinion, is that director who didn't want to be pigeonholed.
That's right.
He did so many different types of films in sci-fi and horror, and he even did the occasional
like action film and
Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh my gosh.
There. I got my wife to watch Assault on Precinct 13.
And his remake of The Thing is one of the few remakes of a classic, 50s monster movie that I really liked. Okay. It's like, okay, he remade The Thing from Another World, and I went into that movie in the theater thinking I'm not going to like this because he's not going to be able to do it as well, and I walked out saying, "Damn, if he didn't." He really made it a fine movie.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that one because the mixture of CGI and puppets.
Oh my God, yes.
I did
the
that.
Puppetry in that is brilliant.
So good. And I went and did that versus what's the one where they're in space? Event Horizon. And I was like, how does Event Horizon not hold up compared to The Thing? Because they've got really crummy CGI, and I was like, it mixes so well together.
Yeah.
Well, if we ever get the opportunity to actually see a full director's cut of Event Horizon, we will probably have a different experience.
Yes.
Is there one? I've never seen the full director's cut. I'd like to.
They haven't released it. It was lost in a fire.
Because I would love to see that, because that movie was so warped. When the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh, I love this thing." I mean, it is. Whoever thought this one up, really? Give me something different, and boy, did they! I really, really loved the film.
Unfortunately,
I watch it all the time.
Unfortunately for that filmmaker, pretty much, Event Horizon was his top. Everyone seems to hate his movies after that, although I'm still a huge fan of his movies. Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah, no, I like his stuff. I like a lot of people I don't think understand it.
No, I know. I tell people I like Resident Evil, and they said that's the crappiest video game movie ever made.
And I think it's one of the best. It's one of my favorite video games. Yeah.
6 or 7 of them. I can't remember how many he ended up making.
I think it's 6. If I'm not mistaken. I just saw the last one. The last one just came out about 3 years ago. It hasn't been that long.
That was horrible.
Yeah, it was a nice tie it up in a bow, but it wasn't as good as the first few. But I did, I love the game, and it's one of the rare movies made from a video game that I really like.
I need John Carpenter to do a video game movie. He hasn't, has he?
No, I don't think he has.
I don't think so. No. Escape from New York could be a video game movie if you really wanted it to be.
Yeah, easily could be a good RPG. Yeah,
I would love to see. I love Escape from New York. See, he was so good at doing sci-fi and horror equally well.
And that was one of the things they talked about, is he wasn't really big into horror. With all the film stuff they did, it was always very sci-fi and stuff. And so when they pitched this idea to him, it was just like, how did you pull this out of your ass and make movie magic in 20 days?
Yeah, because I keep forgetting that you're right, because he did the short film, the Something of Bronco Billy, and then he did Dark Star after that.
Dark Star, yeah.
The Dark Star, that's right.
Which has grown on me. I hated it the first time I saw it, but
it's an acquired taste. I got to like it the more I saw it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
But his sci-fi films are so much more interesting than some of his horror films. Like, you go watch Starman, and it's like,
Starman's brilliant.
Yeah.
There's not been another filmmaker to make a sci-fi alien movie like that. That was that interesting and had that much heart. People try.
Yeah.
Well, I think you may have just answered your question about how did he come up, how did he make this horror movie that sort of set the whole table for a whole genre or whatever. And I think the thing is he went in not trying to make a horror film. A lot of directors just a lot of these horror films that just try to copy something that was successful or whatever. He didn't. He just went in and made a scary movie. And I think that may have been the secret for him.
I also think that the writing aspect, how it was split, definitely shows the two different stories, because Deborah Hill wrote everything about like the females and the babysitters and everything with Laurie, whereas he wrote the darkness and murder machine that Michael is. Yeah. So the fact that you have those two opposing sides, that one's really lighthearted and one's dark, it plays together really well and evens out.
Yeah, it did.
That's
good point.
Yeah, that's a great point to mention. Because I didn't know for years that Deborah Hill had written all the stuff with the ladies. I had no idea. And when I read about it, I was like, oh, because those babysitters seem like real people.
Oh, it was definitely someone who knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, they were all pulled from like real life experiences. Like he had the whole experience with the kid in the psych ward, and she had the babysitting experience of, no, this is what you would do back then, is you would go and babysit kids and you'd sneak off to another room and do whatever.
That's right.
Yes. The horror trope of sleep. What do you call it? Sleeping around and then getting killed.
And so that was one of the big arguments they both kept having with reviewers, is they all were pushing for like it was a morality movie and everybody who has sex dies. And they're like, no, if anything, Laurie is like sexually repressed and she's literally stabbing him with phallic objects over and over in the movie.
That's right.
So like they just throw it out the window.
Friday the 13th was the one that killed all the virgins off.
Yes.
Or killed all the people having sex. I mean, they clearly, they almost, they made it that way. I mean, you could see it was like, man, if these guys are going to get it on, they're going to die.
They're going to die in the middle of it. It's going to be great.
No matter what. So
I think you're absolutely right about that. I think Friday the 13th should be given more credit for that than Halloween should.
Oh no, they should. No, that
should.
Is definitely. I don't think that they ever apologized for it. I think they when they were asked for it, they say, "Oh yeah, absolutely, man."
Sometimes these critics out there just get it all wrong.
Well, they do. No, that's something we do talk about on Monster Attack, is how critics do not understand horror films, monster movies, sometimes even sci-fi. They really don't. But when it comes to scary movies, the bigger the critic, the lesser the understanding they have of it. I mean, you don't judge Halloween like you would judge Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, it's just stupid, but that doesn't mean there's not brilliant filmmaking in a movie like Halloween, because it's there.
That was one of the reviews I saw, is Roger Ebert in all his glory absolutely adored this movie.
He did. And
it was shocking. Everybody else was giving it awful reviews, and him and like one or two others were like, no, this is phenomenal. They managed to get like every college kid in every town in.
Gene Siskel, when they were doing their old at the movies show, and it shocked all of us that Ebert liked it. Because Siskel gave it like 3.5 out of 4 stars. He loved it. And when Ebert basically said, "Oh yeah, I thought it was very, very good," it was like, whoa. Oh my God. But someone like Pauline Kael and Vincent Canby and stuff, they didn't get it.
Pauline Kael's good, but
scary movies aren't supposed to be good. That's kiddie fare. Nobody watches that stuff. It's garbage, and critics are still that way nowadays, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like award season, and like I think Exorcist and Silence of the Lambs were the last 2 horror movies
pretty much
that were nominated in main things. Like now we just have the Shudder Awards, which is great.
Yeah.
Our the Fango Chainsaw Awards, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you look at like how Hereditary was snubbed for Toni Collette and everything that happens with that.
It still keeps coming up how she was snubbed for that movie. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal acting. And when you've got these like really good dramas that have that bit of horror in the background, where if you remove the actual horror or sci-fi-ness of it and you just have the family drama, if it's still a good movie, then that's when you know it's going to be a great project.
Yeah. It'd be like most anything Ari Lester does. Remember we had that conversation before. Brings out some great performances in his cast.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was trying to think of the other.
The other one that's very similar to that is Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, yes.
That whole creation of Mike Flanagan is just phenomenal. And like, I love Haunting of Hill House because it can be just a really good, upsetting family drama. And then you throw in the fact that there's ghosts.
Yep.
At the Academy Awards, when they put like 30 nominations for movies, maybe we may be able to squeeze a couple of horror there. I don't know how many they're at now, but they keep raising the number.
They're raising those and taking away all the artsy people who actually make the movies. So
that's right. Well, for years they would just concentrate on the ones that made the most money.
Yeah.
And somehow that was a sign of a brilliant film, and that is not always the case. In fact, a lot of times it's not the case.
If that was the case back then, I'm surprised this one didn't, because this is actually one of the most profitable independent films of all time.
Yeah, but
it made $70 million total.
It was huge.
A budget of $300,000.
Yeah.
So it's just phenomenal.
I know.
Now you may have Paranormal Activity that kicks its ass because that cost almost nothing to fucking make. But
I think I saw what the most expensive thing they spent money on was the Panaglide, which was like the newest version of the Steadicam at the time, and they were one of the first movies to actually use that. And without it, I don't.
That's
think
right.
the movie
You never saw
good
that up until this point, hardly at all.
Yeah, the movie would have been nowhere near as good because the follow cam where you were Michael Myers, I mean, that would have been completely different.
Yeah, the opening scene would not have been as powerful without it. So
it's so good.
It is, and I forget if you get John Carpenter's book of all of his pictures that he took, you'll be able to see some of the amazing stuff that he took during the filming of Halloween. I know it's a little bit expensive of a book, but it's worth it because he took there was pictures of everything.
Yeah.
And that book shows you and explains a lot of it. I can't remember the name of it. I got it for Christmas a few years back, and I was like, this is an amazing book. But yeah, I mean, that can't say much. I can't say any more about the cinematography. Is this Dean Cundy's work in this first one?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
yes.
So, see, it's all coming back to me, people. Back to me. But
this is amazing, folks, and he hasn't seen the movie in like decades.
Oh my gosh.
No, I don't think it's been that long.
No, I know, but I know you said you were going to have to go see it again. You were doing this off of memory.
I haven't seen it in a while. I don't think I've seen it since Halloween Resurrection came out. Oh
wow, that's been a while then.
Wow.
Well, after the Rob Zombie ones, I didn't watch it as much as I used to watch it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the new trilogy came out, and because I hated the new trilogy, I never bothered to go back and rewatch it. Oh, sorry, people who like the new trilogy. Yeah, I hate that fucking trilogy. Sorry. But yeah, I haven't seen the original in a really long time because
well, since you brought it up, I will say why I don't like the Rob Zombie one is because Michael Myers talks. He ruined the whole damn movie.
And he's got the
Michael
whole
Myers
spectral figure that he's like trying to deal with, and it's like, what even is this? Like the kills are great and everything like that, but that's when we went through the like super bloody slasher stuff of like Hostel.
They should have called it Rob Zombie's Friday the 13th approach to Halloween. Then that would have been a more accurate title.
I won't knock the zombie ones because the one aspect of that I did like is the fact that they made them more like a serial killer. And of course, the new trilogy did, because they got criticized for doing that. The Rob Zombie films got criticized for doing that from the normal Boogeyman fans of Halloween.
Yeah.
Of course, the new films do the exact same fucking thing. But they, because I won't get into the new trilogy.
I won't. I'm just because I love Rob Zombie films normally. I just didn't like what he did with Halloween.
You know what? The second one has grown on me more. I hated the second one when I first saw it, but the second one has grown. The more I watch the second one, the more I enjoy the second one.
That had a little more artistic flair to it. It was a little more original. It was definitely, I will give him that. Halloween 2 by him was much more original than the Halloween 2 that came by John Carpenter, because that was just sort of a retread of the first. So
That's what I liked about it. Over the years, that one surprisingly has grown on me more. I've actually seen part 2 more than I've seen his first one.
I've seen that about 3 times. So yeah, that one actually I have watched more than the first.
I don't think I've seen the second one because I saw the first one and I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, it is different. It gets more into a psychology approach, and Michael doesn't talk in that one, which is good. So it just blew my mind when Michael talked in that first movie.
That's the worst criticism about that movie. You can talk about anything else, but generally speaking, I think everyone agrees with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you didn't get it, Rob. Man, you did not watch this movie. You know, what part of that did you not understand? Sorry, Rob, because I'd like to be in one of your films. So, I mean, you know, I just hope you didn't hear me say that.
Oh yeah, I'll play this.
I got close to being in part 2. I was cast, and then they cut my character out of the script. So,
well, just for your information, Jim, they cut a lot of people out of part 2.
Oh, I know. Yeah, a lot of us. Yeah, because Rob got mad at somebody and totally rewrote the whole script. A lot of us lost.
He cut out a lot of people in Georgia in that movie. I had to hear that for a while.
Yeah.
Getting back to the original Carpenter version, this has gotten probably John Carpenter's probably biggest film with the longest running legacy. Now, of course, The Thing is probably close to being second, but that's more of a cult film because it was not successful. Halloween was extremely successful, and even most of the sequels were successful relative to their budget, of course.
I mean, it is the one franchise with the most films at 13.
I think Saw is coming up on that number 2 now.
They're only at 10. They're only at 10. The next one is Hellraiser at 12.
That's right. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh man, don't get me on that. Oh my god. Oh,
no, I had Halloween trivia to study, and I made a whole chart of the kill counts, the years everything was made, the most number of movies. So got it all up.
Are you going to be discussing Hellraiser on this podcast?
No, I don't think. I'm sure we will eventually, but
I hope so, because I loved the first couple of them, and then they just got goofy.
I went and read the book, and the book is so good, and I love that it's like word for word, line for line, the entire thing. But to this day, my husband and I will be upset with each other or something, and we'll just go, "Don't look at me."
Yeah, I love both those two, but I don't think those are on their list.
Well, we might have to,
we'll have to fix that.
Yeah.
I had 25 movies on the list, and y'all jacked it up to 35. Give me some time.
2 a day, Kevin. 2 a day.
If this becomes this crazy, I might end up. Anyone listening to this will say, if this becomes really popular, I might have to release more than 2 a week. The way this is going.
No, you have to stay with 1 a week. Trust me, that's enough to have to contend with. That's a chore.
You are our resident professional here, and I am going to take your advice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I had my way about it when I started Monster Attack, I probably would have done every other week to get started. Because 2 months into start doing the podcast, I had a heart attack, and then but luckily my co-host and I had gotten 8 in the can, and it was just long enough for my recovery and my rehab to get back, pick it back up again. But it was like, it's hard. It's hard to do a weekly one. I feel a lot of co-hosts that way.
That's why I rely on my co-hosts for this.
Yeah.
I rely on y'all to bring your A game so you can inform about half the stuff that I've forgotten. Now, there are some films that we will be discussing in which I know a whole hell of a lot about.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why my favorite film is not on the list. I will go off on tangents out the ass if we sit down to discuss Night of the Living Dead or Carnival.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do those two, or even The Haunting. I've watched those a billion times. I still watch them every year.
Oh, that's a shame. We were getting ready to do The Haunting on Monster Attack in about another month.
Don't have Kevin on. It'll be 4
the
hours.
Original one from the 60s?
Yes, I disown The remake doesn't exist.
No, the remake is awful. Yeah, no, that's coming up on our podcast in about another month here.
Well, if you need a special guest, you might need to call me on that one.
I may have to, because Shane Brumby, Madeline Brumby and Shane Morton are wanting to jump in on that one too. They wanted to do a real good. They didn't like The Exorcist, so they wanted to jump in on a real ghost story.
Oh, I can do The Exorcist too.
That's my little teaser. Okay, that's my shameless
I love
plug.
The Exorcist.
I did too.
I missed it at the theater this year, but every time they re-release it, I tend to go and watch it.
Yeah.
So I've seen it like 3 times at the theater because I love to watch that movie.
It'll screw with your mind, I'll tell you.
It's so good.
It is.
Doesn't really screw with my mind. I love the book too. So
the book I thought was even more frightening than the movie.
Yes. So
yeah.
Have you read the book, Panozzo?
Not yet. It's sitting on my list. I have a long list of things to read. We talked about this last time, Kevin. I don't have the attention span.
It's far more graphic than the movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even like I remember the first time I watched that one, I ended up watching the director's cut when she spider walks down the stairs. And I thought that was in every version of it. I was like, this is terrifying. I mean, I was also like 6 years old when I saw that one, but
oh my God, that'll warp a child's mind. Yeah, at that age.
I
was in college when it came out, and it oh my God, it traumatized me for years.
It was one of those I wasn't supposed to see, and I was like, "Oh, what's this movie?" And got the whole religious beginning, and it's fine. And then all of a sudden, she's like peeing her pants and crab walking down the stairs and speaking in tongues, and you're like, "What is happening?"
You should be glad you didn't have a mother like mine, because I saw The Exorcist really early in my life, and unfortunately that didn't warp me. You'll be surprised to learn that the second one actually warped me.
That warped a lot of people, yeah.
And not in the bad way like most people would think. Most people think that's a horror movie.
It's not a horror movie.
For me growing up, the second one had African Americans, and it had what's his face? Oh, I can't think of his name to save my life. Darth Vader.
Oh, James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
James Earl Jones. And dude, I love James Earl Jones. So seeing him in that movie was like, oh, this shit's scary, man. What the fuck, dude? Yeah, that movie terrified me as kids. First one never terrified me. Okay.
Yeah, I laughed my ass off through most of that film. I could not believe how bad it was. It was the writing. I mean, the writing was just so horrific.
Well, it explains why the director/writer came back for the third one and why it was so just game-changing compared to the second one.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the third one I liked. Yeah,
third one doesn't follow the book.
The third one we're going to do. We'll do a show on Monster Attack. The second one we're not going. If we do one, we'll do what we call a ragorama, where we take a film and just have a lot of fun with it.
I can't believe people hate that movie so much. I love the score. Ennio Morricone does a
the score was fine. Yeah, the music was fine.
See,
speaking of music, we ought to talk about the Bowling Green Philharmonic Orchestra.
Yes.
Because I thought that John Carpenter's music was a game changer for horror films down the road. A lot of people tried to copy his music.
They still do.
I remember one of my distinct impressions walking out of the theater the first time I saw Halloween was that I had never seen music that so enhanced a motion picture as I had witnessed in that film.
Yeah, and I mean, he did it over 3 days.
Yeah.
They previewed the movie and they were like, it's scary, but it's not scary enough. There's no music with it. So he was like, okay, holding my beer. And he just decided to plow through it and
grab a keyboard and and put it together. It was so simply done, but so effective.
Well, and I love the rumor going around the internet that that's how Ozzy got Crazy Train, was from the way that this was.
Who knows?
Oh, wow.
Because it's got like the same pattern.
It is.
Of chords.
It is similar. You're right. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm a huge fan of Carpenter's
but
music.
everybody's tried to mimic it over the years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
they still try and mimic it. Halloween's the way he wrote music back then, which was I think relatively new because
it was
Yeah.
never been done like that before.
yeah, I can't remember offhand what he was using to write his music with, but that was relatively new. I've been studying some music stuff lately, and I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I can't remember back then what was available. But I mean, he basically had a stock keyboard, like a Sony keyboard or whatever, that could give him various instruments and stuff, and basically did all of the tracks from that. And it's magnificent how he put it all together.
Which he uses for subsequent sequels.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he still uses some of that style in his new stuff. I don't know if you both are. He still is composing music, not only for
Yeah.
No, but he still does it with a lot of his. He's actually segued into a music career outside of this. I wish I could see him when he traveled here years ago.
Oh, I know he did that live show. Yeah,
I wish I'd been able to see it because he's like Goblin to me. Goblin, I've missed them twice. They've been here. I miss Carpenter as well, and I would love to see their show because the new music that guy is doing may be his old style from, say, Halloween, but he's writing some of this with his brother and not his brother, his son and his son's friend. They've come up with some amazing music on this Lost themes.
Yes, the new thing that he's doing. It's so good.
So good. And, it's just a testament to this is a style he started off in Halloween and he's still doing it now. And it's still popular now.
Yeah.
Well, and he's one of the few creators who can write, direct, and compose. Like, you don't get that trifecta in a lot of people.
No.
That's true.
Yeah, or at least not nearly as good, because I like Robert Rodriguez, but he's not nearly as great as he tries to write his own music and movies and directs movies. And sometimes his movies are memorable, but more often than not, they're not. But
don't dismiss Spy Kids that easily, Kevin.
Spy Kids 5 or 6, whatever number they're on.
Yeah, whatever one.
I'm not sure what they're on now. Yeah, all I know is that the kids are no longer kids.
Yeah, the kids are no longer. That being said, it's great to talk about this film, and I
think it's Spy Kids 7 Retirement Home. That's it. Yeah, that's.
When he retires, he will do Spy Kids 7. Still make money off these Spy Kid movies. Money. John Carpenter's still making money too, but he's like taking the money and run.
Oh yeah.
And he'll admit as much. He'll say, "Yeah, I don't care what they do with these remakes. I just cashed a paycheck."
That's right.
Carpenter, from what I've read, he must be a really laid back and cool person to work with and work for, because even though he has created some of the greatest horror and sci-fi films in our history that continue to resonate with audiences today, he seems to be the most laid back director I've ever read about.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely helps that everybody he tends to work with are all people he grew up with, went to school with. Those people are married to the other department people, and everybody there is just one giant family working.
Yeah, that's it.
Or they're just Kurt Russell that he keeps doing movies with no matter what.
I mean, I won't complain about Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. That is a match.
That's a great mix. Yeah, it's a great mix.
Them having done, I think, 4, 5 movies.
It's a beautiful collaboration. Yeah, those guys. Yeah, it's. I mean, he reinvented Kurt Russell. I mean, Kurt Russell's got a lot to thank John Carpenter for. No, because I mean, Russell was a good actor. He's a good child actor. Yeah. Made a fortune for Disney and all that, and then had trouble finding those intermediate roles and early adult roles. So I'd do stuff like Jump Ins on the Love Boat or Love Connect, or not. I guess the Love Boat, and that other anthology series that was on in the 70s, and then his stuff with Carpenter all of a sudden launched him into the badass superstar.
Pre-Western too,
Absolutely.
He wasn't doing any of that as a young guy.
Nothing. No, his when he met Carpenter, those two really hit it off, and a whole new career was created for Kurt Russell after that.
So.
He became leading man material.
That's after he did Elvis for
Love American
yes.
Style. That was the show I was trying to think. Russell did a couple of segments on that show. You know,
I mean, he also
that's where washed up actors went to get.
He was Elvis, but he also kicked Elvis in the shins.
That's true.
Kurt Russell played Elvis in 2 movies.
Yeah, made for TV film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so which is actually a good John Carpenter film. Don't knock it; it's good if you haven't seen it.
No, I didn't. It was all right.
I'm not an Elvis fan, so
I'm not either. Yeah,
I
was not a big Elvis fan.
The only Elvis I love is the one in Bubba Hotep.
That's your retirement home. John Carpenter does a retirement home movie with Kurt Russell as Elvis. It would be great.
That would be a perfect mix. Yep.
Part horror, part musical adventure. Come on.
Yeah.
I would watch that.
Yeah, John,
I would definitely check that out.
Yep. All right. I want to thank you two for joining me for this conversation in horror about Halloween and John Carpenter. We had a lot of great insights and went off on a lot of different tangents, but I think we got back to the basics, which is John Carpenter, king of horror and slasher films, and created one of the most iconic slasher films out there.
It's just a shame the other slasher films didn't get what Carpenter was doing, but
and Carpenter created a film that has a very lasting legacy. That's 45 years old now, and they're still making new ones. They're still, I think they're prepping to do a television show now. It's a franchise that doesn't ever want to die, no matter how many times they actually kill Michael Myers.
Well, there's new generations of fans, so you know.
But
you can't kill fear or fate, Kevin. It's just going to keep coming back.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for reiterating that. Now, pay close attention to the scenes of Laurie Strode in school, and you'll understand that. All right. Well, thank you both for joining me on Conversations of Horror, and I can't wait to have another conversation on a different film. For everyone else out there, thank you for joining us this episode, and we hope to see you very soon. Have a good evening. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.